What's going on, guys? Today we're going to work on installing this Jackspania OBD1 wiring harness onto my 90 Civic Si. This car is still OBD0. I have plans to eventually put a different motor into it, but I also wanted to clean up the bay by converting it to OBD1 and getting rid of some things like the resistor box, moving the fuse box under the dash, and just trying to clean up the overall aesthetic of this engine bay. Now this harness should help do that. It has an EF sub harness already, and these harnesses attached directly to an OBD1 ECU. It has everything you need here for hooking it up, such as like the alternator. This is a knock sensor if you are doing like a VTEC engine. But everything you need here and some extras depending on your engine setup is here. The only thing that you are missing on an alternator, you guys are usually familiar with this top one right here. We have the 10mm nut. You need a charge harness. So that charge harness is going to run directly to, it's the fuse box to starter and also a fuse box to the alternator. This does not have it anymore in it. Jackspania actually includes, they sell, a separate charge harness that I've failed to get, and I will get one so I can hook it up. With my recent battery relocation, I ended up making a charge wire from the fuse box to the starter already. If I move the fuse box to the engine, out of the engine bay to underneath the dash, I'll need to make it longer. So buying that kit will actually have one long enough for both. It should have one long enough for both when I was looking at the length of them. It's one thing you will need, or you can make your own. It's not that difficult using some connectors and just making a nice simple one, but something I'll probably get alongside that. But everything else is here that you need, and it's nice, they're all labeled. Like say for instance, the VTEC sensor right here. This does not have, if you have a VTEC engine, say for instance on your VTEC engine, you have your oil pressure switch. It's now eliminating that. It looks like the two wires are powered together, and that's a way of doing it. And a lot of these VTEC, the solenoids, sometimes they don't even have the pressure switch. So it eliminates that altogether. So I'll say on this particular car, I'd be able to just not have that plug there. So I'm gonna get started. Start by pulling the fuse box underneath, extending wires where I need to for certain things. I think I may need to extend the wiper motor wiring. I'm not going to share all of that in the video. I'll just share any tips or ideas that made installing this wiring harness easy. But let me get started, and I'll give you an update here shortly where I'm at, and I'll keep you on some good progress along the way. Right here you have your starter and your alternator leads that go to, of course, each individual one. After disconnecting the wiring harness from the fuse box and also from the chassis harness, one thing for sure, if you want to retain your wiper, because when I pull this back into the cabin, I'm going to pull it back through here. It's obviously not going to be long enough, so you may need to extend it. You could possibly take it apart from the loom. I don't know if there'll be enough length, but if you take it apart from the loom that's going to be stuck in there, obviously you can still follow the original wiring and just pull it up. I may actually do that, just pull apart all the wiring there and then retape it up so it's a little nicer also. But just something to consider when you want to keep your wiper motor. And I like having the wipers. I'm weird about having my cars street legal. I always like to. So one thing I will not eliminate is the wiper. Another thing that is going to make it a little easier, what I'm doing now, I pulled off all the wiring for the side, headlights, fan, the relay, the horn. These are connected to that bundle of wiring harness. So I'm gonna take my time and I'm gonna actually wire tuck these down the fender. I did it on this car and I love how it looks. It's just so much cleaner now with everything out of there. And then I extended the wiper wires through the frame rail as well. Figure I might as well do it. I'm already here. It'll take me a little bit extra time, but I can still get the wiring harness hooked up and then have this done next, but something I'm gonna do alongside installing the tucked harness. So here's a small update. I got the original wiring harness removed. All of the wires are pulled through and the wiring harness is completely pulled off. I'm gonna plug everything in and I'm gonna feed these through. I'm gonna just see if I can get them everything connected where it needs to be. We're gonna try to fire it up. I already swapped injectors. I put a set of OEM OBD1 injectors, pulled out the OBD0. If you're curious, let me see if I can get a better look. These I'd cut before. On OBD0 injectors, there's a little tab right in the center. OBD1 injectors have the 2 on the corners. That's an easiest way to identify them. You'll see the 2 on the corners, then the OBD0 has that one right in the center. But regardless, I swapped those over. I need to put on, I have a distributor already. I'm gonna put the distributor on and we'll see if we can't get this thing fired up. Okay, a couple things you're gonna need to pay attention to. Reverse switch on the cable transmission has these 2 little, it's a female and male plug. The wiring harness has a newer one, so all of the hydro transmissions that have it, I'm sure I could find a switch somewhere, not worried about that. The fan switch on the back of the block for this particular motor is back there and it has a little 2-prong connector as well. This wiring harness has, I believe it's this one right here. That's correct, that's the fan. This wiring harness has the newer one which connects to the back of the thermostat housing. Another issue you'll need to take care of depending on your setup. We're just gonna leave this in here for now. I'm doing this for a future plan. I wanna put that Y7, Y8 engine back in with the supercharger. So this would make it easy. That one already has the fan switch there. It has a cable transmission on it still, so I'll still need to find a reverse switch. Everything else seems to be working okay. The ECT, the H2O, the distributor, I put wires are both up here. The other one fell down. I'm just working my way around. I'm gonna try to get everything plugged up and tucked in there a little bit. Okay, here's the latest update. I got everything hooked up now. I ended up changing out the housing on the thermostat for a Jackspania one. I got the new fan switch in, I got it plugged in. The old housing, it comes straight out. This one angles it forward. I don't think it really made much of a difference. It just pushed the radiator hose over a little bit. It kind of keeps it out of the way here. I don't think it matters. It's the same radiator hose. Should be fine. I filled it up with fluid. We are gonna get it started now. So I have a couple wires running here. I haven't gotten the charge harness in, so I just ran temporary wires from the fuse box to the alternator and starter. Plug my battery back in. All the wiring down here is connected. The sub harness from the ECU is connected. I'm using one of my old Honda's, the one that was actually originally in this car. And I had set it up off screen just for, there's a base calibration that says D16A1. I think that's the best one. Let's see if we can get it started. And let me open the garage door first and then I'll get it started. All right, so let's give this a shot. So fuel pump's on, check engine lights off. So everything's working. You know, there's no check engine lights on. Everything has a spot, which is great. I was a little worried. Seen a couple videos, people having issues with putting harnesses on, and not getting them to start or just running correctly. You know, after disconnecting this, obviously it makes sense though. We converted to OBD1. The fact that I did convert to OBD1 at the same time just had me a little bit, I was just a little leery, hoping I could get this started, but everything seems to be fine. That's not, gosh, I don't know if I talked about it. I bought a brand new distributor. This is for the D15B7, which is the 9295 Civic DX. I believe it's a TD41. If you're looking up, there's a TD42. I think it might be the Z1 engine. Regardless, about $100 on Amazon. Has proper connections there too. It's not timed. I don't even think they're completely tightened all the way. Set the timing, get it running. The fan is not hooked up, obviously with the wire tucked wires. I think now I can go ahead and start working on putting this somewhere nice and neat. The charge harness, when it comes in, I can just run that through. It shouldn't be that difficult, but everything else, kind of get it plugged up and then start working on all of, that's what I need to work on now. And this is just a pain in the butt. I'm gonna remove the fender, run them through here, and then get that set up. And then I'm gonna work on that. I'll give you a final look at everything finished, but the harness is done. It starts up perfectly fine. I had 0 issues. I'm sure there could be small things along the way, but as long as you have all the proper connections and everything done, well, I don't see any reason why it shouldn't be working perfectly fine. But this one is working great, and I need to just change out my reverse switch so I can have the correct one on here now. And I think we'll be good to go. All right, guys, so here's a new update. I finished up the wire tuck on this side. I put the fuses there. Got the fan routed, the lower bumper light. Everything here is done, and it's a lot cleaned up now. Before I taped everything up, I was testing it out, and I was having trouble getting the fan to turn on when the engine was warmed up. So I did a little bit of troubleshooting. I had first pulled the plug off and tried jumping it to see if the fan turned on. I ended up figuring it out by looking through some pinouts. So on an OBD0 setup, on connector number B, you're gonna have this wire right here. It's B4, which is the radiator fan relay. This one did not have any location on the new sub harness, so the radiator was not getting any power. So what you need to do, if you're using this particular harness on an OBD1 Honda ECU, it's right here. This is A12. It's actually flipped around this way. So if you're looking at it, you just count across the bottom. It's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. It's this orange wire. If you look at the pinout, you need to run a connector from this B4 to A12, and I just spliced it in. I soldered it here and over here also. I actually kept the original connector on there just in case. I figure if I ever need to put that back in there. You need to run it to there, and it will properly power the fan now. When you turn on the car and it gets up to operating temperature, it will kick on as it's needed to. And so now I can plug the charge harness in. We're gonna get this wired up to the fuse box, try to clean up some of my mess down here, run that in appropriately, and see if we can get all this finished up, clean up the engine bay, get the fender put back on. I'll give you a final look at the entire tucked harness, and let me try to clean the bay also, just to get a better overall aesthetic. And we're gonna work on this on another time. I'm not gonna finish it for the video. That obviously you could imagine what it's like to just not have that wire there and tucked underneath. It's pretty time consuming to do, and I don't want to finish that now before the video. I just want to get the video out because everything else is complete. So let's wrap it up and get you a final look at the entire harness setup. All right, guys, and we're at the final clip here. The harness is completely finished. I had a chance to wash the bay today, and I did it pretty quickly just because of time constraints for me. I had to work in a little bit. Looks a lot better though. Cleaned up the shock tower over here. Haven't wired in the windshield wiper, but I'm not worried about that. This car doesn't need another inspection until the summer of next year. Try to clean up the firewall. I had removed the little, I guess the insulator that was there, and underneath it's a little stained just from being old. but it looks better with it missing. Still need to work on the wire tuck up for this time, but that's another day. Everything looks a lot cleaner now. Washed up the transmission, engine block as much as I could. There's some stains on there just from the old aluminum, but it's looking pretty fresh. I like how nicely everything's starting to look. Another thing I want to get rid of is that firewall mounted map sensor. Get a different throttle body that can mount it on there, either an OEM or aftermarket one. Wasn't an issue now. Main thing was trying to get this harness installed for you guys today and see how it worked. Really wasn't very challenging. Everything has a spot. Even going from OBD0 to OBD1 wasn't that difficult. Everything's there already here. Injector clips are set up. It removes the resistor box. You just need the correct parts. One of those parts mainly being your OBD1 ECU. And that'll just plug right into your sub harness. Now it's a little messy down here. That I think is one of my biggest complaints about tucked harnesses. Like there's a lot of extra slack. See how it comes in from the firewall and it loops around. It has the sub harness. It has that additional wire, that the one I had wired from the fan into that harness. There is the charge harness over here. So this is it's pretty gross. I don't like it. Not much I can do about it unless I really want to start taking everything apart and then going ahead and shortening wires. That's something I'd like to do for another day. The main issue was to try to get this car running with the harness, make sure I didn't have any issues. This right here is your windshield wiper right here. So these are the ones I'm going to need to extend through the firewall, but like I said, I'm not worried about that. The car starts and runs perfectly fine. Let's head over to this side and find the keys. Let's start her up. I don't have any check engine lights. I was getting one when the fan wasn't working because obviously the ECU was reading, it was overheating, but it idles great. It's loud, of course, with my old exhaust setup, but I'm not having any issues. Everything's working great. Now let me talk about overall what I think about this harness. I think the quality is fantastic. The length of wires for where they belong it's perfect. The way it comes out of the firewall, I have it right here and I just taped it up because I had the old grommet coming out. You can see it right there. So I taped it up, but mine is a little beat up when I was trying to remove the old harness from there. I'd like to try to find a solution for that. I think if I ever get to that point, it'd be cool to just maybe cut this harness and plug it into a mil-spec harness on both sides and then shorten the other side. Do some really cleaning up, but I mean, everything else, the length is perfect for like the grounds, the fan, everywhere that needs to be, even with the reverse wiring. Now, overall, what I think this harness is a solid 10 out of 10. I don't see any reasons that it's not something you could use. I'm not having any issues. I'm using it on a single cam, on a SOC ZC, that's OBD1, was OBD0. I'm not having any issues. I think on, say like an EG that's already OBD1, it'd probably be way easier to connect everything. You won't have these little issues that I did. Maybe even the fan would work, I don't know. Now the sub harness needs help, and the reason I'm saying that is because the sub harness could potentially be something that is also like the B connector, which right here, this is the B connector and I had to run it off. Now here's the sub harness. This sub harness could potentially have a B4 going to A12 already, maybe like tied in together. I don't know how they could do it. And my biggest complaint, which kind of sucks, I'm annoyed about, is the reverse wire. The reverse lights do not work. And the reason being, where is my I don't know where I have it. I have an EF SI harness that was off this car. That harness that comes up here to the shock tower, the reverse lights go to this connector and it's not now connected to anything. And you have a green, black, and a yellow. Can you see it? It's basically on this side right here. It's on the bottom side. Green, black, and yellow. There would need to be another sub harness made for this to connect the reverse lights. Mine don't work. I already jumped it. I ran a wire there. I ran it to the switch, and it works perfectly fine when the car's in neutral if I jump it. But I don't know where. There's coming off this harness, there's an orange and a gray. I sent a message. I'm just waiting for an email back. Maybe they can figure it out. I mean, I don't know. There's a couple. There's like there's a couple orange wires there. There's another one here. There's 3 I see right there already off this harness. So I'm saying I don't know where it goes in terms of this particular harness. If I can figure out where those 2 go, I could essentially just pull them under here and then run a little clip here. I probably have an extra clip off of an old resistor box I could use for this, but that's my biggest complaint. The only thing is just that sub harness needs work on an EF. I don't know if that's the same for any of the EGs and EKs. Maybe just weird with the EF and the placement of the fan, obviously the steering there, but that's where it could use some work. But other than that, guys, I like it. I think those small issues of me doing a little bit of wiring it's kind of neat anyways. Like I'm learning something, trying to figure out where they're at. And those little tidbits of information that kind of get stuck in your head that you don't lose. Definitely challenging to try to figure those out. First thing was a fan and then now these, but really not that difficult if you have the wiring schematics. But I hope you guys liked the video. Thanks for following along. There's a lot of talking, not a lot of doing, just showing you updates here and there, but we got it all installed and it's running smooth. And now I think I can actually take this car to the track. I wanted to get it out on track at least once, even in stock form. And I don't know if I'll leave it on the NT05s. I don't want to risk like getting my powder coated RPO ones damaged. I might just throw on like the wheels off the CRX. Just take it out there for a session and just have a little bit of fun. I'm not trying to tear it up, but just see how this car does and continue working on it a little bit more. Thanks a lot, Jackspania, always for the parts. I love the parts they make. Continue to make some really cool stuff. And one thing I almost forgot to add is they are now making an integrated charge harness with their wiring harness, which is awesome. So that additional charge harness that I added, that just added more wires right here. They're like super long. This is going to be now integrated into some of the wiring harness that they offer. And it's probably the same price as paying for the wiring harness and the charge harness alone. So that'll be cool. It's already in there to just keep the engine bay even a little cleaner and plus less to mess with under here. But thanks for following, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. We'll get out here again soon. I got another component from Jackspania that we're going to put on here next. I think that one should be really fun. Quick, simple install to get that done. We will see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.